Hello and welcome to another training video, and this is another one on AutoCAD, and this is a Lisp routine that I've just written in response to a viewer's question. Now, I had a viewer who asked me about his AutoCAD drawing, and in the drawing he may have had a number of different blocks. Now, these haven't been inserted as XRefs, they've just been inserted as individual blocks into the drawing. However, he has a library of blocks elsewhere, and blocks in the library have been updated. But because these are not XRefs, they haven't fed through to the drawing. Now, if it was just one or two blocks, it's very easy to do. You just go into the design center and you tell it to redefine the block. But imagine you had 100 different blocks within multiple different drawing sets. Well, you might want to automate it. And so that's what I've done. So I've written a Lisp routine that first of all will take all of the blocks which you've named. It will take that list from a CSV file and then run through them one by one and redefine them within the drawing from the location that you specify. So there's a couple of things we need to do to set up first of all. So the location where I have my block library is on my desktop. And I have three files in here, which are the blocks that I've used in the drawing here. Now, these are saved in a different way. The vanity and the bday, those two have been saved by using the write block command. So they've actually been saved separately as individual blocks. Whereas this one here, the WC, that's actually been saved as a DWG file, not saved as a block. So the entire file has been inserted into the drawing as a block in this drawing, but not necessarily as a block in the other drawing. What I've done also is I've updated the blocks in that location there, and all I've done is I've simply changed the color on them so that you can see that it feeds through. Now, the other thing to note is the way these names, the file names, are spelt. These have capitals in them. The blocks within the drawing don't. So if I say insert, you'll see these are the blocks within the drawing. However, the capitalization doesn't matter so much. So it doesn't really matter when I say refresh, as long as it has the same set of letters in the right sequence, it doesn't matter which ones are capitalized, which is really worth knowing. Okay, so what do we need to do first of all? Well, first of all, we need to set up something called a support path, and I'm going to do that here from the CAD menu and options, and I'm going to go into my support file search path. And this is when I tell it to redefine from a file name, it knows where to look for that file name. So I've just added in a support path here to my desktop and that CAD block library. Now, the way to add this in, if you don't have it there, you just say add and then browse, and you can go to wherever it is and click open. And you've now got that support path added in. It's always a good idea to click apply before you close. And now we have that support path. So if I say, go and find a block, here's the name, it knows where to look if I haven't specified a file location as well. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to generate a list of all of the blocks that I've used within this file. Now, the easy way of doing this is with a data extraction. So I'm going to go to my insert ribbon, I'm going to insert a data extraction, and I'm going to create a new data extraction just so that you can see the process for this. So I'm going to say next. I'm going to save this on my desktop just for now, and the only reason to save this is so that you can use it again in the future. So in fact, I'll put it in that CAD block library, and I'm going to call it blocks. And it goes as a DXE file, and I shouldn't say blocks, I should say block names. And I click save. Okay, so now it's asking me, what do I want within that library? Now, actually what I want to do is I'm going to choose everything within this drawing, and this will give me all of the blocks by name that I've used in this drawing. Now, I could say, just select certain objects. Now, that would mean that I could select, let's say, that block, and that block, and it would then list the names of those blocks. And then when I come to run my code, it would only update those blocks, but Not quite, because what it would do is it would update any instances of the blocks with the same name. So even though I hadn't selected the other blocks within the drawing, because they have the same names, it would update everything. So I'm going to choose everything in the current drawing and click Next. What I'm also now going to do is not display all objects, but just display the blocks only. So there I've got my 3 blocks within the drawing. I'm going to click Next. Now what it will do is it will ask me what else do I want, because I need at least 2 columns in my output. So I'm going to choose, I'm just going to say color. So I'm going to take off all these others because I don't need anything else. I'm just going to say color, and we'll see how that comes through. So I click Next. I now have a count to say how many of them I have. I have B-Day WC Vanity, and I have this color column in here as well. Now, I do want to combine the identical rows because I have 3 instances of B-Day. I don't want B-Day, 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 WC, 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 Vanity, Vanity, Vanity. What I want is, I just want 1 instance of each here. But I don't want to see the count column because I don't want that output to my CSV file. I do definitely want the name column, that's that one there. This one here is the extra one we added, and that's the one that we're going to delete once we've created the CSV file. So next, I'm going to output this into a file, and I'm just going to put this on my desktop. So I'll put it on the desktop for now, just simply so that we can find it. And DWG with blocks, it's taken the name of the file. I'm just going to change that to just straightforward blocks CSV. Now I'm saving this on the desktop, but after I've edited it, I'm going to move it into my C drive. Now that is also important because that's where I've referred to it in the code. Now of course, if you want to have a different path, you can edit it in the code. So that's saved, and I click Next, and it does the output, and it tells me that it's done it. So it's saved the file successfully created. So let's have a look at it. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to my desktop, and there is the file there called blocks. So I double click on it. It's going to open up in Excel. I simply have the block names, and I have this color column which I'm going to delete. Now this is the bit you need to be careful of. I'm going to save this again. Now it's saved as blocks CSV. If I hit save at the top, that has saved that file again. But I need to open it in a straightforward text editor, not in Excel, because there's something I need to check here. So I'm going to say open with Notepad. Now the reason I'm saying there's something you need to check is depending on how you saved it from Excel, sometimes you end up with commas at the end of each line, and it's actually to do with what you've still got selected in Excel before you do the save. If you have something selected in a column next to where your data is, it then has to put a divider between the data and the next column. So that's not what we want, and in this case it hasn't put the commas in, so that's fine. But I've made allowance for this in the code, so if yours has put the commas in, you don't have to go through 1,000 different things and remove all the commas. You can simply change one of the lines of code. And now I don't need to change this because I haven't actually made any changes in my CSV. What I am going to do now though is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it into my C drive. So I'm going to go into my C drive, and I'm just simply going to paste it in there. Because I've already got one there, I'm going to replace the file in the destination, and I'm going to say yes as administrator to put it in the C drive. If you don't have administrator privileges, you might want to save it somewhere else, but then what you'll have to do is you'll have to also then change the location in the code for how it gets that file. Now what I'll probably do in future versions of this code is I'll set up a browse, so I'll get file D, so I'll ask the user where they want this file saved or where this file is located. Okay, so I've got that in my C drive. I've also got a copy on my desktop, but I'm going to delete that copy there just so that you see that that one is not what's needed. Now I'm going to go into my file here, and I'm going to upload or load an application which is the Lisp routine that I've written. Now, the one I've written is called update blocks. So I select it, I say load, and although it says successfully loaded, when I click close, I'm going to actually click on that flyout so I can see a list of recent commands, just so that I can make sure that it has actually loaded. If it comes up with any errors or misformed lists or anything like that, here will be where it comes up. So that's fine. And now what I can do is I can start typing in UPD. The command is called update blocks from CSV. I press enter, and it has now updated all instances of all blocks that were in that list that we output, irrespective of the fact that the names were lowercase and in the actual file they are uppercase. Okay, let me just go back a couple of steps because you can undo. So I've undone one of the items in my Lisp expression, and that was updating WC. Now WC alphabetically is the bottom of my list, so that was the one it did last. If I do Control Z again, it undoes vanity, which was the next one up alphabetically in my list. Control Z again, and it undoes that. So UPD, press enter, it will update everything from the list. So let's actually make some modifications. We've got our WC in green. Let's go back and try a couple of different variations with this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and update this one, and I'm going to change that to, let's say, purple. So let's go to our desktop, go into our CAD block library, and I'm going to go into WC, double click on it. It opens the file. Now this is the one that is a complete standalone file. So I do Control A to select all of it. I'm going to go to Home. I'm going to change the color, and let's just make this one a horrible purple. And then we'll save this file and close it down. Now you'll notice that the WCs in this drawing have not updated. Even if I do a regen, it's not going to update because they're not XRefs. These are standalone instances of the block in that drawing, and the instance of the block in this drawing is still in green. That's why all of these are green. It is the other location in my CAD library which is the one I've changed to purple. So if I just do UPD, update blocks from CSV, enter, now it's gone and regenerated. It's put the instance from my updated version into this drawing. Okay, the other thing we can do is we can play around with something similar. So I've just undone that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to regenerate that external list, but I'm going to do it from selected objects, and I'm only going to select the vanity here, and then we'll have a look at how the DXE is updated accordingly. So I'm going to say extract data. I'm going to use my previous extraction as a template, and I'm going to go to wherever it was, which was in my CAD library, and it was that DXE file there. So I click open, and this now regenerates and starts it. I'm going to call it the same name, so it's going to overwrite the existing one in there. And now instead of having the whole of the drawing, I'm going to say select objects in the current drawing. So I'm just going to say select objects, and I want just that object there. I press enter to tell the machine I've finished selecting objects. I've only got the one there. You'll notice it's only this particular one that's selected, none of the other instances of vanity, but they will still update because they have the same name. They're linked to the same block reference. Okay, so next, everything else I'm going to keep the same. So I want just my blocks. There we go. I want the one that is, oh, it's only choosing vanity this time because that was the only one I had selected. Next, what do we want? We want color. Yes, fine. Yeah, there we got vanity and by layer. These are the settings because we started from an existing DXE. All these other settings are what I left them as. Next, even the location where it's going to save it, it's going to put it on the desktop, remember? And I click next, and it's written that file to the desktop. So let's have a look on the desktop. Let's look for blocks. And in this instance, we only have one instance of vanity. So I'm going to delete that, the second column, and save. And now again, just to double check, we're going to open that in a text editor. So I'm going to open with Notepad, and we see that there are no commas. Now it's good practice just to check this each time, because sometimes you're going to get the commas. And I'll show you when we have a look at the code, I'll show you where we can actually fix having commas or not. Okay, now this file here is the one I need to copy, and I need to paste it into my C drive. And again, I'll show you in the code where you would edit this. So I paste in there, replace the file, and yes, I'm administrator. Okay, so that one there is now the one that's going to be updated. So again, because I've still got the command loaded, I can do update blocks from CSV, and it's only updating this block here, which hasn't changed. It's not updating the WC to show me the purple color, even though that one has changed. Now let's just demonstrate that again. I'm going to go back in and change this one to a different color. So that's my vanity. Let's go into here. Let's go into the desktop, go into CAD blocks. Let's open up vanity. Now this is a different one. This block was created, or the block was saved using the write block command. So this goes straight into the block editor because it is just a block. Now in here I can select all and go to my home ribbon, from properties select a color. And let's just choose a nice bright yellow for this one. Close the block editor, save the changes. Now because it was a block, it's also going to just close that file down. Now if we run our update again, UPD, it now does update that block, but again it doesn't update the WC. That hasn't gone purple because the only item in our list was the vanity. Okay, let's now have a look at the code, the moment you've all been waiting for. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to go to where I've got the code saved, which is in here, and it's right down the bottom. So I'm going to open that up in Notepad just so you can see what the code is. So I'll talk you through the code. Do pay attention to these steps at the top. If you want a copy of this code, don't bother trying to write it down. Just put a comment down below and ask me, and I'll send you through the code. So here we go. There's a few lines here just telling you who I am, when it was written. As I make changes to this, I'll also put updated on comments down there so you know which version you're working on. You need to set your support path to match wherever you've got your block library. You also need to have generated the CSV file, which has all of the names of the blocks in the current drawing that you want updated, and all of those names of blocks must also be in the block library. Otherwise it's going to stop, you're going to get an error. If you've done a data extraction to CSV, you then need to open up in Excel and remove any extra columns, just leaving the block names. Okay, as we go down through the code, the first line here, this is just defining the function. So there is the name of the function that we call, which is update blocks from CSV. Now obviously, as you saw, once we've used this a couple of times, we can just type in U, and it will then be the second most frequently used thing on our list. So U, down arrow, enter to execute this command. Initially UPD, that will be a unique starting command. UPD enter will also work. Now the next line here will open the data file. This is the CSV file, and you may change this path. So there is where I've got it in my C drive. Now of course you can change it to wherever you like within your machine. Just be aware that your own unique user paths on your machine, they change with the different versions. So if you update from Windows 7 to Windows 10, for example, your path to even your desktop will have changed, so you'd need to update it. Equally, if you put in a network location here, you need to make sure that you have access to that network location when you try and run this code, otherwise it's not going to run. Okay, now we have a few variables that we're going to use. Sorry, the R at the end of that is basically open it as read only. The variables we have here, we're going to set the first variable, which is block name. Now what we're doing here is we're reading read line from within my file. Now the very first time I did read line, the very first line in my file is simply the header row. So that's just reading the header. And immediately then underneath I say same again. So now I'm going to change that variable to be the next line, which is now my first line of data. So this is going to be, when I've got all of them in there, that will be bday, so it'll be the top item within my data. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm saying I want you to keep going through this code until you get nothing for block name. In other words, when it gets to the first empty row, then it stops. So what you need to do is you need to also make sure that you don't have any empty rows in your CSV file, otherwise it's going to stop there. Now of course, if you have done data extraction, you're not going to have any empty rows because it will have only exported your block names, and that will be exactly what you have. You'll have something in every row. Okay, here we go. Now what this next line is going to do, it's going to read the length of the block name and subtract 1 if we need to get rid of the comma. So if your code has extra commas, what we're going to do is we find out how long is the string which is block name, and we're then going to say, well, the string length equals the string length minus 1. Now that line of code is actually commented out at the moment because we don't need it, because ours doesn't have a comma. If it does have a comma, all you do is you take out those two apostrophes or semicolons there, and that will put the line back into active mode, so that will then run when you run the code. Now what we're doing here is we're making sure that our block name is the block name minus the comma if we have that line commented out. Now we don't have to comment out all of these lines, we just have to comment out that one there. So if you do have commas, comment that one back in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to concatenate the block name, which is our first line, which in this instance would be bday for the first one, with itself. So we have bday, but what we're going to do is we're going to put an equals in the middle of it. Now what this will do is it tells the machine, when I say insert bday equals bday, it then goes to my support path location and looks for a file called bday, and it then says that's the one I want to import. So I'm going to import one from an external location. I'm not going to import just the block that's in my drawing to insert. I'm going to import the external one. Okay, so here's the key thing that does it. So this is a command. So that's an AutoCAD command, and the command is _insert. Now the underscore means use the command line option of this rather than the dialog box option. I'm going to use blk update, which is this one here, which is bday equals bday. And what I'm going to do here also is I've got a y following that, which is yes, because the machine will ask me, do I want to redefine the existing block in the drawing? So I'm going to say yes, and then I'm going to close the command without actually entering it. So all it does is it goes into the insert, it looks for the source file, it then redefines instances of the block in my drawing, and then doesn't continue with the insert command to put it in as another instance of that block. It then reads the next line of our CSV file, and it will continue to do this until block name is empty. Now I could just have while block name, because is less than or greater than nil is implied, so while block name is something would also be just as good. That's the end of the while loop, and then what I do here is I close the block file and then shut the function down. Now like I say, if you want a copy of this Lisp, just give me a shout. I will absolutely just send you this file exactly as it is so you can modify it to suit yourself. What I may do though is I may have updated this, in which case I'll send a couple of files out, so it'll be update blocks 1, 2, 3, whatever. Equally, the updated files will have the date they were updated and what the update entailed in the header for the file. Okay, let's just close this down now. I hope it has been useful to you. If it has, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. And as always, thank you for listening.